Matt's subject, as you'll see in the program, was Welcome to the Age of Innovation. And since I'm not Matt, I thought I would twist that just a little bit. And with permission from Chris, that was the subject. We're actually going to talk about innovation leadership. Welcome to the Age of Innovation Leadership. And this is obviously the Innovation Leaders Forum. The subtopic for today is building the innovation function in the enterprise. Some of you have done that more than once. Some of you have shrapnel wounds and evidence of persecution from having done that more than once or one time. Difficult to do, and a really, really important part of succeeding in innovation. So it's quite a relevant subject. And so I just wanted to ask, I mean, it's interesting, how many of you have innovation in your title? If you raise your hand, who's here? Who's got innovation in their title? I mean, obviously, you're in the right place, right meeting. It's interesting, some of what we're learning is that this is clearly a growing phenomenon. We're going to look at some statistics. And the relevance of Imaginatik is that, and we have many colleagues here, our consulting team, very talented consulting team, leadership team, that spends a lot of time with organizations, not on the technology side, as Jim Eichner says. It's not really the tool stuff. It's really the process, leadership, skills, mindset stuff that makes an enormous difference in enterprise. And that's really what we're about. As you go through today and see some of the exhibits and panels, we're really about helping enterprises get ready for innovation at various levels and then get connected. Those two things. You could make a much longer explanation, and we have those two. But it's those two things. How do you get ready and how do you get connected? And if you do both well over and over at higher levels, there is measurably more enterprise success. Okay? Let's take a peek at the environment. Most of us know this, but it's interesting. I, like many of you, when I ask someone, what are you responsible for, not often do I hear, I'm responsible for the process of innovation. I hear slivers. I hear all kinds of point solutions. Oh, I run the PPM system, or I'm the front-end person, or I'm just breakthrough, or I'm the catalyst. And what's true, those are valuable elements and aspects, but the process is all of those and more. It's much more than that. Capgemini's study, I found it interesting because there is such a hunger for data in this area, in this whole area of innovation, that anybody who does any survey becomes the authoritative source for that month. And Capgemini, you may recall, last year released a study, very interesting one. And it wasn't all global organizations. It admittedly was 1,200. But, they claim 43% of organizations have an accountable executive. I actually find that pretty high. Any thoughts? Is that high, medium, low, that 43% of global organizations have someone who owns innovation? Thoughts? High, medium, low? I don't know. LinkedIn, on the other hand, only lists 36 chief innovation officers among the Fortune 1000 today. Is that accurate? I don't know. It is accurate as of last night or last few days. And 1,300 other people with either a C-level title or a VP title with innovation among the Fortune 1000. I did a quick comparable on that next bullet, look at marketing, and marketing was in the tens of thousands. So one good piece of news is, career-wise, we're probably all in the right place. The wave, the tide's going to rise. The wave's going to take us there. The question is, what role do we play in this functional category development in the future? Where do we want to be? Booz Allen says the prize is enormous. It's just massive. I mean, if you do it all right, everything that supply chain transformation and ERP transformation was supposed to do, innovation will do. So all those things that never really did happen then, now you can get it with innovation. Okay? Higher enterprise value and margins and growth. And I know we believe this because this group is really looking at the revenue line and the growth side and the margin side, and it should be more likely. But all in all, a pretty positive environment. And yet, I don't know about you, I keep seeing the exact same tired stories of innovation success. If this is also true, where are all the other stories of success? Like, where's success? Why isn't it as measurable and discussed and visible as we'd all like to see it? That will be coming, but I submit that's your job. I mean, that's the reason you're here, and you will meet and network, and maybe we will have the privilege to assist you in some of that journey, is that it's really about leadership. The leadership side is catching up with the promise of innovation. I think you'll find it interesting that this is now grammar school type stuff. Innovation isn't just us. Take a peek in this video. It's now being taught in grammar schools, I think. Could we hit the video, please?
What is innovation?
Something new, something better.
Go.
I think innovation is like a new idea that gets really good, and then it gets sold, and then a lot of people like it.
Go.
I think innovation means to make something new that's either solves a problem or makes something better. Innovation is making something up or making something better. Innovation means to be creative.
Go.
I think innovation is being smart.
I think innovation is making something new or better.
Innovation means solving problems. I think innovation is something new or something new that solves a problem. Innovation is making things that either solve a problem or make something better. I think innovation is making something better. I think innovation means that you make something and then you make it better.
Hi, I'm here to talk about what innovation means. Innovation means something that you make better out of something or creating something. Innovation is really important, and so don't forget about it.
So, one of those people, I think, is going to be an entrepreneur for sure. May not only be an innovation, may be doing a little bit more than that. I actually found this so curious because, there is abundant talk about innovation. I was just at a conference in the technology area in Las Vegas this week with some of my colleagues, where innovation's a big theme, and yet you couldn't get two people to come close to the same statement about what innovation is. It was all over the map. So what is innovation? Let's take a peek at this. Let's go to the next slide here. You can make this as complicated as possible, but I try to look at it in a very simple way. If I have a career and I have a function and we're trying to help an organization do better things, starting from the end, you want that little happy emoticon on the faces of a lot of people higher up and at shareholder level saying, this is good for us. Something good is happening. Really important to remember that. And we don't have to go through all the distinctions of what it isn't, what it is, and all that. But I think what's interesting is this whole thing of a process of sorting out the better stuff that gets produced. There's a few different words there, that it actually gets produced and goes somewhere, and we sorted it out, and there was a whole lot of different ideas. And when you look at this, we're going to reflect on it a little bit, because we're about to talk about some of the traits or some of the facets or faces of a leader, of all of you that might help achieve this mission, or some version of it, whatever version you like. And as you look at it, think a little bit about, well, if I was advising a business, or I'm advising my team, what skills, what competencies, what experiences, what do we need to pull this off? Or make it personal. What do I need to pull this off? And I really urge you to think on a personal human level. Okay? So, having teenage boys, I know a little bit about bribing them for behavior. So We're about to go through a few slides that might provoke you to ask a question or two, and we'll involve the group. If someone thinks it's a good question, applaud. And they get one of these great little Ethel M chocolates, sea salted caramels right from Las Vegas. They're fresh, brought in overnight. Okay? So we'll try to get at least 3 very provocative, and if you're the 4th or 5th, I'm sorry, backlog, can't help you today. It's not going to work, but we'll try. We'll do a little test to see, is that provocative enough to get some chocolates? So let's talk a little bit about some of these attributes. And I really urge you to think about this heavily, because so much of the attention in the literature, and we have journalists and analysts and thought leaders here, is on methods, on frameworks, on techniques. It's on premiums. And you sort of say, where's the human side of this? This is all about people, and it's all about changing behavior. So we ought to also put some real energy into the people side. And so we're going to talk about that. And by the way, this is, at best, sort of right. You're going to have other facets, faces, or capabilities you think are really important, and they're right. Won't go into where all the research is coming from, other than we are doing a lot of research on the question. It's very important in Imaginatik how to make enterprise innovation happen. Not just how to talk about it, not just how to enable it, how to really make it happen. And it is a leadership question. So the first one, orchestrator. What's really terrific about the innovation leadership role is it at once needs to touch and coordinate many functions and many resources, and yet often they don't report to you. Isn't that a fun activity? These aren't reporting to you, yet you need to bring them together. And by the way, at various times, the organization has a high, medium, or low capacity to absorb what you're bringing to the table. So you have to throttle back even how much innovation, what level of innovation, what speed. So the orchestrator role is a evolved role of leadership, because you're not telling people what to do. You are in many ways, as an orchestrator does, guiding. And also, let's think about the orchestrator's job of he or she listening so carefully to so many diverse players and instruments in their setting, just like you have to. Is it just a question of customers? Well, which customers? Is it just a question of ROI and finance and the CFO? Of course, but who else do you listen to more this month, this quarter? So clearly a tremendous premium on being a listener, and also guiding and motivating everything that an orchestrator has to do. One of the more fascinating roles, and I know several of you in your work to some extent, I know you do this very well, is, for lack of a better word, being a linguist. You have to establish a language for innovation at your organization. So for example, there are organizations we go into that the mere statement of the word failure sends people out of the conference room. I mean, failure is a banned word in the lexicon of that enterprise. We don't have failure. We don't talk about failure. If you talk about failure, you can't be part of our culture, our winning culture. My point is, there's a whole vocabulary that must be brought in, socialized, and that you do socialize, whether it's words like experiment, not just words. What does it mean to experiment? Some organizations think experiment means weakness. What do you mean? You don't know that's a market need? So experimenting, failure, risk, small bets, there's all of this language and nomenclature that as a leader you must be prepared to bring in, teach, spread, that will help change the culture. And words do mean a great deal, and so you want to give this a whole lot of thought. Many of you do, maybe all of you do. Good to see you, Rob. It's probably trite, and it's easy and trite to say you're a visionary, but what this is about, it's not so much a visionary, it's really the capacity to look near and far and toggle between those distances, between short-term, medium-term, long-term, and back. and be able to constantly help your team and the organization worry about these different levels of vision or perspective. And in particular, in this area of visionary or of perceiver, I would suggest that one of the most important advocacy roles you have is to worry about Horizon 2 innovation. Now, if you're Clayton Christensen with tenure at Harvard, you can promote breakthrough all you want, and one thing's for sure, if you're wrong, you have a paycheck and a job tomorrow. How many of you have tenure? Who has tenure at their corporation here? Anybody want to raise their hand? So I get the trend on disruption and breakthrough, and everything's got to be disruptive and breakthrough. There's only one problem. It takes the longest, lowest likelihood of happening, very hard to get accepted, very rewarding, and it's only one part of your portfolio. And what's super exciting is Horizon 2. It's beyond adjacent, before breakthrough, and these are the rising star businesses, opportunities that could make a huge difference in the 9 to 36-month horizon that only this kind of leadership can make happen. It won't happen on its own because of all the things you have to do. Okay? So, ability to see far and short and have a perspective that is almost 360. It was ironic, I saw Moises this morning, and we did a high five on this because one of the traits or facets or edges that I've discovered when I talk to a seasoned innovation leader versus someone brand new is, the new one talks a lot about frameworks and the science of innovation. The experienced person talks about selling innovation. They spend a lot of their time creating business cases and selling the next product, venture, opportunity, concept. It is a relentless selling, persuasion role. Now, not selling, and as we now know, transactional selling's dead, and some people are saying solution selling's dead, but selling in the sense of trying to find who are the right sponsors for activities and aligning with their agenda and their objectives. And all of you have to worry about this because otherwise, we'll get to the next slide, otherwise you don't get the resources. Not just the money, you don't get the people resources, and without that, you will fail. You will fail, the enterprise will fail in pursuit. So the business opportunity development, I regard as one of the most crucial ones. It's actually, some of the smartest people in life aren't very good at selling because they almost feel like it's beneath them. We need to recalibrate what this means. It means getting others to buy into your vision, your good vision. And that means expressing it in terms of their objectives, their metrics, what they want to get done. Otherwise, it won't happen. So, really sharpen your selling business opportunity definition, promotion game. And then resources. This metaphor of coins, candidly, show of hands. Who has here all of the human resources? You may have all the pots of gold you need, but who has all the human resources you think you need to succeed at your 2013 objectives this year? Who is feeling like abundance? You've got everybody and everything you need. Vice versa, who feels, go the other way, you have a large gap? Who has a large gap in resources? Is there anybody with a large gap? I mean, there's decent hands, and in the middle there would be all of you. The resource issue is king, and by the way, in terms of, so I call this fundraising, and it's really resource raising. It's not just funds, it's resource raising. How do you get incredibly clever at resource raising? Many of you borrow resources, right? You have an array of volunteers, shared resources, quarter time, part-time, and that's all good as long as you know who you can go to and when and still use them. It's less good if it's volatile and you can't finish your projects, okay? But the whole fund resource raising area is really paramount. And last, change driver. Driving change is hard stuff. I don't know how many of you love it, like it, love it. Again, many folks would believe that if a concept is developed enough, robust enough, smart enough, it should just, why isn't everybody getting on board? Why isn't this just good enough? But it does take quite a bit of change in an organization, accepting new ways of working, new beliefs, thinking about changing the rules. So the change driver role is a crucial part of your job and all of our jobs. And I think what this comes down to ultimately is to think about during today and when you leave today. Which edge are you working? Some of you may, have all 6 of these exactly where you want them. I doubt it's many of us. And most of us will have 1 or 2 we really want to sharpen. Like, this is an edge where I know I'm going to be more effective to my colleagues, my stakeholders, my customers, to the enterprise. And so give this some real thought of what edge do you want to work on today? And as you go around, these are persona facets. There's some change drivers here, I suppose. If we'd have given this thought, someone would say, I'm a linguist, or I'm a seller. Come spend some time with me. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and it's the home of Techstars. Brad Feld founded Techstars there, which is now in 7 cities around the United States, including Boston. And Brad has these really fun parties where when you walk in, you have to pick up 1 badge, only 2 badges. One is called a hacker badge. I'm a hacker. And the other one is I'm a hustler. And you'd better be one of the 2. Because what they're trying to do is jam 2 people together to start a business. And his view is you need both for a great embryonic business. You need a hacker, a great one, and you need a hustler at minimum. Now, scale it up, you need more. But I found that really interesting. I asked him, how did you figure that out? He goes, well, we figured it out by doing it wrong a whole lot of times. That's what you need. So again here, just as you think about your career, your mission, what do you want to spend time on? And who in this room can help you? I think every one of these facets is in this room. Let me stop there. Questions, comments, thoughts? I only have a couple more slides left and we're done. What's on your mind? Who wants chocolate? Salty chocolate. Sea salted caramels. I don't think I've ever had those. Any reactions, thoughts? Relevant, irrelevant? Chris?
Which one of those roles do you see the most of?
Oh, mine would be a biased view of whoever I just met. I would say there's folks in this room, in this role, who are probably doing all of these rather consciously. And I think, by the way, to Chris's point, I think it's about being present and conscious about it. No one's going to be a 10 on all. It's, are you aware these are your roles? Is this something you're striving to keep on your personal agenda so that you do a better job? I know this. I noticed in the research overnight or this week that of late, the half-life career length of an innovation leader is 3.5 years. I don't know who measured this. I don't know who would know. So there's some guess, 3.5 years. And the reason was that it was on the change management side. The change management issues were so overwhelming that that person could not succeed against the expectations he or she or the organization set for them. It was just too much. The business changed, politics changed. 3.5 years, the good news is today, 3.5 years is a pretty long career. That used to be a short career. There's no stigma, right? Today, if you don't have 10 jobs, you're a loser, slacker. But in seriousness, 3.5 years is a lot of time in most organizations to change things, and yet, for those of you doing big-time change, it's not enough. You probably need 5 years, I like the Jeff Bezos rule of, I'll make money in 10 years, come back and talk to me. Most people don't have those stakeholders or shareholders who will listen to that. But I think one lesson I would say I share with leaders and executives is be extremely careful about this low-hanging fruit dialogue. Low-hanging fruit means you're going to get fired also. Because if you get stuck on low-hanging fruit, and that's all you can ever deliver, because organizations get addicted to low-hanging fruit. It's quick pops. You'll never do important work. And most people end up saying, well, that was all tactical stuff. Anybody could have done that. So you've got to be careful what expectations you set of how soon you can deliver. Flip side, most of us, if we say to our managers or shareholders, great results in 5 years, that's not a very long conversation either. Other points? Any questions, comments? Rob? Yeah. I would love for this to be a discussion item throughout the day. I think all of us, let's talk about it. It's not my opinion. I think many clients we're working with would say, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is not. It's no longer a pure science research-based discipline by any means. And in fact, it's that plus. It's that plus many other attributes. What I love about this area is it's the ultimate Renaissance job. It's many facets. If you wanted to be a Renaissance person, you are it in this profession, because you must be very good at many things and many human things that go beyond the R&D edgy side. Comment over here. Question. Awesome question. Yeah. Awesome. Great question. I'm going to repeat it, and we'll see if we applaud. Now, Rob's question was terrific, but he's with Imaginatik, so he doesn't get chocolate. We can't keep the chocolate. We can't keep it. So the question, I'll rephrase it, is this really about one person or the team? Could you have a team that embodies and represents these skills? Is that a great question? That's a great question. Okay. Again, I think this is for us to discuss. I'm far from the answer on it. Love that proposition, love that hypothesis. I think that's very true. In fact, one of the examples I'll give is Jerry Meyer and John Bidwell is just one of 2 pieces out of 4, and the skills they respectively bring to Chubb are extremely different, complementary, and then they bolt on other capabilities. And I've enjoyed listening to that discussion because it really works for them to build out a team that can achieve this function at the organization rather than one human being. Really like that question. You also had a comment over here. Yeah. Right. Right. So did everybody hear that? Where do you source? What is the source? Where do they come from? And in particular, I think as I've been doing research in this area, it has occurred to me that one almost needs an institute with, so you have Outward Bound for a month to 3 months to learn really how to get close to nature and build out all these skills that are not very common if you live in the city. You almost need an Outward Bound of innovation because it's a little hard to find. It's actually pretty hard to spot the right talent, assuming you could spot them. So again, I would say this is for the whole group. I'd say my colleagues in the room will have a point of view, and I think I will. I mean, the truth is, it's an impolite truth that some organizations seem to pick them right and some don't. It's not always a very good pick who's asked to either lead or be staffing innovation. There's a whole lot of reasons how or why those people end up in that role. But for sure, I would say one attribute that's implied in much of this is communication skills. And I think some of the more effective innovation leaders we have a pleasure of working with or next to are very good communicators, and that's a very big term, what that means, both listeners, explainers, articulators of the game and the results and what's needed and wanted. So I'd say, question,
Well,
thoughts?
I have a comment on that because I edit a journal and I interview a lot of people in those roles for that journal, and the most common background is where someone has had almost a general management background. So they may have started in R&D or in some other function, but they have run businesses and come back. And so they're considered to be lean forward, innovative types, but they often, very often, have had a general management background before they move into a role like a Chief Innovation Officer role.
Good. And let's keep that dialogue going today. Let's absolutely keep asking folks. One last question, then I'm going to wrap up. Need to make room to keep going today. Any more questions over here? Yep.
As the need for innovation has been rapidly accelerating now, how long do you think before this type of leadership role becomes the norm?
Yeah, my own view is about 5 years. It's just a gut feeling, and I'll tell you why I think that. I was fortunate to participate in a similar corporate shift in the 90s around supply chain. And it started late 80s, early 90s. And when Dell changed their supply chain became strategic. And what Dell basically did was say, who needs inventory? Let's build to order. I mean, we're never going to build, build against plan. Let's build to order. It probably took 8, 9 years for that to become a profession. And I think we're in year 2, 3, or 4. Literally, I see a very similar parallel. Today, most companies have a supply chain executive. They're a very senior executive at the table. Many even end up being CEOs now. And it's become a very strategic, thoughtful, capable role and department of organization. So I'd say we're years away, and I think this is a very exciting time for this career and for all of you in it. Okay. Keep the questions coming as we dialogue this during the networking breaks and other breaks. So my suggestion to you, do a little check-in. I mean, it's really easy for these conferences. You're off-site. I hadn't mentioned it earlier. Try to put your phones on mute or put them away. Give yourself a chance to really absorb what these great speakers are sharing with you today. And just check in and go back to this chart, even in yourself, and say, what did I learn about some of these facets that might help me? Okay? Number 2, network. There's a lot of folks here who, in one fell swoop, will help you be more effective at what you do, reveal new truths, and expand your own capabilities. So please, we have a lot of network breaks. We have a whole networking fun function that Chris has designed, and with Rob Spence's algorithm, I think, or something like that. And let's take advantage of that. And lastly, reflect. And I do mean reflect. I find that, and this is just a personal suggestion, that all of us are so busy, we rarely even notice what we're learning. I mean, we're going so fast that we don't even stop and say, well, what just happened the last hour or two? Did I just learn something that's really valuable to me that'll change my agenda, my plan, who I hire, how I stand up as a leader? So do stop and reflect and find some time. There's a lot of time during today to do that. Okay? Find some homework. What's 1 or 2 things you want to work on? When you leave here, what's a couple things you really want to go dig down and work on? And again, I have a lot of talented colleagues here that they know of resources, activities. Anybody here from the Bay Area? Nick? I just happen to be very fortunate. I mean, there's some amazingly fun resources in most cities we don't know about. Autodesk has a museum on Market Street near the One Market restaurant. And if you engineer it right, you can get somebody from Autodesk to take you in. It's a fascinating museum on the history of CAD and design, industrial design. And you spend an hour or 2 in there, and I assure you, you'll connect a whole lot of dots. You'll find new dots and connect dots that are relevant to your job no matter what you do, no matter what industry. There's all these activities where you can just do a pit stop and go do something really fun. So find some homework. Enjoy ILF. Chris Townsend, take us away to the rest of the day.